Humans are always saying that's not right for extraterrestrials to tag, mark and probe our bodies and have us hallucinating. But what you keep forgetting is that everything that extraterrestrial beings do to you, you do to other creatures. You abduct people and call them POWs, prisoners of war, and MIAs, missing in action. Iran abducted Americans, Americans abducted Vietnamese, etc. You are constantly abducting each other. You butcher and eat cows, chickens, deer, rabbits and anything else that moves. The farmers make a big deal out of beings mutilating their cows. It is not because they care, it is because it is a product and you are taking away from their sales of beef. Vegetarians tend to think that they are doing Mother Nature a favor by not eating animals. Vegetarians are snatching plants out of the ground. Because plants grow toward the sun, they are thinking. They are killing the plant by taking it from the ground and throwing it into a pot and boiling it. Of course you'll say a plant does not think, that it grows by instinct. That's because you don't think anything else has intelligence other than you. You will recall that mutilations generally result in all of the blood being withdrawn from the body. This has been the case whether the subject is an animal or a human. The blood and other fluids are then generally transferred to holding containers or vats as well as other body parts. There are many reports of humans in various situations and scenarios having come in contact with extraterrestrials, or have been in caves or caverns with extraterrestrials, and having seen canisters or vats in which animal part were floating, and in which a purple-red fluid was present as a substance in which to suspend all the materials. There was one case where a woman and her children were abducted by the entities from Bellatrix, the entities referred to as SMs, small men, and she would not cooperate with them when they had her on board their ship. Their reply to this lack of cooperation was very direct. They killed both her children. She managed to run down a hallway and into a room where she saw a vat full of red liquid and body parts of humans and animals. She saw another vat of the same type in which the liquid was being agitated, and as she looked into the vat she could see grays bobbing up anti-down, almost swimming, absorbing the nutrients through their skin. There is also the use of hydrogen peroxide in the vats in order to aid in preserving the fluid from rapid degeneration. These entities have been abducting humans for many centuries. These entities view Earth as a big farm and have been essentially raising and harvesting humans, and apparently they abduct humans to take them back to their home planet to raise. Another woman named Krista Tilton was used to breed EBAs, extraterrestrial biological entity. She was taken to an underground facility in Oklahoma where some of her ova was removed. This occurred in July 1987 AD when she experienced missing time. She was taken to computerized checkpoint, weighed and given an identification card. She went to level 1 and then on to level 5 where she saw crafts and little grays. She also saw these vats of colored fluid. However, she was prevented from seeing what was actually in them. She smelled formaldehyde. She had many children but was allowed to keep only one, a daughter who is said to be a clone of Krista when she was a child. If you study ancient history, you will find that it was common for humans to sacrifice their children to their gods. It's even in your Bible in Genesis 22:9. The process still takes place, especially in some satanic rituals, today. The reason why their practices occurred is that the children were being given to extraterrestrial races. The ancient gods of the Old Testament were beings of a radically different nature than the human species. These were the same entities that destroyed the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. The beings or gods that destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah didn't destroy it because of homosexual acts. It was because they did not like their own mingling with humans and decided that humans were too much of a nuisance. Sodom was like a breeding ground and Gomorrah was like the wasteland for people such as derelicts. The stories given in the Old Testament relate to other archaeological studies found in other cultures. Babylonian, Akkadian, Sumerian, Ur and Egyptian cultures all carry stories that add to and clarify these stories in the Old Testament. The entities who were portrayed as gods were in fact extraterrestrials. Some of the gods asked for sacrifices of a human nature. Here we are referring back to the period over 12,000 years ago, but the practices have been continued. The ritual of the Eucharist, eating bread to symbolize the body, is a reflection of earlier rituals where extraterrestrials were eating off the bodies of humans or feeding off their energies. The phrases food for the gods takes on a new meaning when these factors are overstood. The true nectar of the gods which the extraterrestrials involved seem to prize most is a substance that is taken from freshly killed humans. The substance which is generated is taken at the moment of death and is the strong surge of adrenaline. This surge of adrenaline through the body accumulates at the base of the brain stem, and some extraterrestrials thrive on this substance as though it were some kind of ultimate drug for their particular species. This substance is most potent in human children. The entities that originally participated in the creation of the Homo sapiens species placed the entities, humans, that they had genetically engineered in their own image, Genesis, in the area of what is presently Saudi Arabia, after their expulsion from the Garden of Eden, Ganawa, which some research seems to indicate was a laboratory complex on Mars run by a group of entities known as the Jehovah, who seem to be regarded by the Pleiadian humans as space renegades. The process of development of the Homo sapiens species was interfered with at a later time. Some of the various 22 subspecies of greys originally started out normal without defects but were subject to heavy radiation due to a nuclear exchange over a long period of time, changing their DNA to the point where some of the species became stunted misshapen dwarves. The glandular structures were also affected, including reproductive and digestive organs. The nuclear exchange occurred thousands of years ago. Their digestive tract is useless. Nourishment is ingested by smearing a soupy mixture of biologicals on the epidermis, or upper layer of skin. Their food source include the bovine cattle parts and human, which are surgically removed by light technology such as the laser, making smooth and bloodless incisions which distills the body fluids into a high-protein broth. These types of greys are from the Orion Crusaders or the Markabians. They live in these following sources: Rigel, Ursa Major, also known as the Big Dipper, Draconis, and Reticulum. An incident of what you call cruel or brutal examinations. For example, a cage tube is often inserted up the human rectum and around into the intestines in order to withdraw samples of fecal material for analysis, apparently to examine the types of food eaten, as well as the results of the digestive process relative to extraterrestrial influence on the physical body. Several types of beams are used by extraterrestrials. One in particular, the blue-colored ray, is used for paralyzing, capturing and transporting humans. The action of being beamed into a ship temporarily suffocates the human, as all the oxygen is suddenly removed from all the cells of the body during the process. Another type of radiation restores the oxygen to the body upon arrival. When the extraterrestrials themselves use beam transport, a different type of beam is described quite frequently by abductees. Many abductees are finding metal implants in their bodies that were inserted with the precision of a doctor. However, they had no history of any previous surgeries. The devices are found in various parts of their bodies such as the eyes, feet, legs, brain, genitals, etc. Do not underestimate these extraterrestrials. Many of them are what you'd call scientists and physicians. One such case was an abducted woman who had a metal implant in her foot, and the same kind of implant was found in her mother's foot. There are people who are born with mysterious fine holes and then liars, and others often hear buzzing or a ringing in their ear. They have what are considered strange birthmarks and visions. Oftentimes, people who suffer from the sleep disorder known as narcolepsy, which means that they are always in a semi-conscious state, will not be abducted, because they would remember their abductors. What isn't made common knowledge was the fact that the establishment had given extraterrestrials the right to abduct humans and to experiment with for cures of diseases, and to plant monitoring devices in the brain for research reasons, under the condition that they would give them technology, cures and scientific information. The extraterrestrials were to tell them who they are taking. When they are taking them, they will be returned and they wouldn't remember what happened to them. However, they took more people than was reported, and all those taken weren't returned. What the conscious mind may forget, the subconscious mind doesn't. Your brain is a hologramic computer, and it is just a matter of knowing how to access the information. Some people who have been abducted have undergone what is termed regressive hypnosis, where they were made to remember what they'd seen and experienced. Most people think that they had some type of dream. However, through regressive hypnosis, which certain individuals are now trying to make illegal, the truth in their so-called dreams becomes a reality. Movies are made so that you will always reflect back to some type of fantasyland idea. So movies and advertisements showing all types of extraterrestrials had to be produced for the public, so anyone who had come in contact or had been abducted would not believe it. The reality should be something shocking to you, but the movies have made you numb. There are many movies that show different extraterrestrials, whose images, in some cases, have been telepathically received by movie directors or producers. This is a plan devised by extraterrestrials. The reality of their abducting human beings for their purposes against their will wouldn't be of common knowledge. In other words, whenever you hear or see extraterrestrial-related information, you won't take it seriously. It is all a part of the plan. In the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, the movie deals with human beings' race with time. People know what the year 2000 represented and that the time was at hand. The story tells of a diabolical computer HAL aboard the interplanetary space sea raft Discovery. This computer represents the age of technology. There are principalities and high places that were seeking to get past the year 2000 AD in any way that they can. HAL destroys everyone on the Discovery except for the mission commander, who outsmarts him. He breaks the time barrier and goes back into time, until he is at the embryonic state. The embryo is the rebirth that he is seeking. He is placing his hopes in the birth of a child who is the Antichrist. Because the public has received such a negative view of extraterrestrial beings, movies like E.T. were made to dispel some of the fear that has been instilled in you. Don't be fooled, not all extraterrestrials come to help you and not all of them want to harm you either. Some of the movies that we see are actually real stories, and some of them are depictions of the future. Extraterrestrials like the Predator, who was copied from an actual being from the Andromeda Galaxy, look like grasshoppers. You look at movies for entertainment, however, you don't perceive the real truth. The establishment are subliminally telling you that they know extraterrestrial beings do exist. For years there have been movies made with so many lies mixed in with the truth. By the time you finish this, and the many others published by the Holy Tabernacle, you will know the truth and facts. It is a fact that extraterrestrials of every kind are amongst you today. They walk, talk, laugh and work with you. So when articles like the one pictured are printed in tabloids such as Weekly World News, October 2nd, 1990 AD edition, they are made to introduce you to, as well as test your belief in extraterrestrials, and at the same time, keep you unsure and guessing about their existence. Tabloids have such a reputation for publishing silly stories and hoaxes. They just use a certain format of mixing fact and fiction. It is a way of informing those who know, and those who don't know. But the general public doesn't take these stories seriously. I am not saying that everything that is written in these newspapers is true, and now you can find articles about extraterrestrials in magazines and newspapers like Time, Newsweek, Omni and New York Times, which are considered trustworthy sources. However, what I am saying is that the media has a way of giving you the truth in a distorted way, and the truth will be looking you right in the face and you won't see it. There are many kinds of extraterrestrials in your midst. They live in the waters of the ocean and on the surface of the earth and inside the earth. One type you should be aware of are the reptilians who humans should feel threatened by. They have been breeding with you and living amongst you for centuries. They are humanoid in shape and reptilian in heritage. Their leader elite are the Draconis. They are from Draco in the 6-star constellation Orion, meaning it has 6 suns and that would mean 6 solar system, with many kinds of life forms. These reptilians stand from 8 feet down to 6 feet in height, with dark green scaly skin. Their leader is Haten, a warrior, who is a Draconian. He is a reptilian who defected from the reptilians while here on Earth and reformed to fight against the reptilians, on behalf of humans. He is the commander of Ashtar Command. The reptilians originally could only stay out of water for only 3 hours. Now they can stay out of water for 6 to 8 hours and retreat back to water only at night. The reptilians have no hair on their bodies, just as a frog or snake. They are called the serpent people. The Greys are really a crossbreed between humans and reptilian species. There are several other lines of crossbreeds between humans and reptilian species that have various specific characteristics. Some hybrids have an active pineal eye, and are telepathic. The Greys are being used as slaves by the reptilians. They have been breeding with humans so they can reproduce on their own and have done this successfully. They were once used by the Anunnaki and are highly intelligent but began to die off. These beings, the Greys, operate very efficiently in the dark. Their eyes are more sensitive to ultraviolet light. They have the ability to control their heart rate. The normal heart rate for a Grey is above that of a human. The skin seems to have a metallic content and an unusual cobalt pigmentation. Many have no external sex organs. Some have been bred to have them. There are accounts in the legends of Babylon, India, Egypt, South America, Central America and elsewhere that reveal the influence of this other species. One variety of the reptilian crossbreed is particularly negative and dangerous. This variety, who work with the Draco, originate from a system having much more high-energy radiation than on the Earth. These hive-like beings use synthetically produced substances, mixed with blood. This slurry is something mixed with hydrogen peroxide, which kills the foreign bacteria and viruses. They feed off the life essence energy of the substances. They also feed off the nuclear energy and have manipulated humans into developing sources of the nuclear power that emit radiation. The Greys, the short, big heads, are mercenaries. They interface with humans in secret societies, and within the military-industrial complex. An interconnected web manipulates the surface Earth cultures. The command progression is 1. The Draco, winged reptilians, 2. Draco, non-winged, 3. Greys, and 4. Humans. It should be noted that not all the crossbreeds are steeped, saturated, in elitism. There are 70 different species of Greys. 8 of them are still coming to this planet. There are 2 major kinds of Greys. 1. Marcabians, from the Zeta Reticulans, who are about 4 to 5 feet tall. 2. Those from Beltrax, also in the Orion system, that are about 3 to 5 feet tall. And another species of Orion Grey that ranges in height from 6 to 9 feet tall. Humans are ripe for enslavement. You are basically sitting ducks for what is about to take place in the universe. This is because you have no idea what is really going on in the world. You are so caught up in trivial and unimportant matters that you don't even realize that the harvest or rapture is occurring. The conflict presently underway is for control of the earth and those here. The establishment has been in business with the Greys for decades. As I pointed out earlier, the Greys are controlled by the reptilians, who are a disagreeable and vicious group of extraterrestrials. Greys would like for humans to help them, however, reptilians communicate with them telepathically and would know their intentions before they act upon them. And now that things have gotten out of control and the extraterrestrials are basically in control. The truth about extraterrestrials is far more frightening than even the establishment could ever imagine. In general, the Greys that have operated on Earth for a long time are subservient to a larger reptilian species. Because of their subservience to the reptilian species, it is possible that they would, in principle, desire the aid of humans in any future confrontation with their reptilian masters. This could be the main reason behind the training that is given to abductees. The Greys have become a nuisance due to their cattle mutilations and overpopulance, that resulted in complaints from the Hopi Native Americans. A few still remain in dreamland on levels 6 and 7 with the Dracos from the Orion star constellation. The general class of beings known as the Greys make up several species. All the species seem to have rigidly defined social classes, which tends to be a hallmark of electronic space societies. The Zeta Reticulans are divided into two social classes, one being more hawkish than the other. The more peaceful of the two appears more reclined and has demonstrated a more tolerant attitude towards humans. The other class is more abrupt, blunt and crude towards humans. Through analyses of many cases, it would appear the tall Greys have one base near the Aleutians Islands in Alaska. The taller Greys seem to have overall influence over the Reticulans and also over the Beltrax species. The influence over humans center around implantation, political figures, and those in control of planetary power groups. The Zeta have reproduced themselves for thousands of years by the cloning method. There are two groups, Zeta 1 and Zeta 2. Zeta 1 are 3 feet 4 inches tall. They have large insect-like eyes, 2 opening for the nose, and a small mouth. One organ does the job of the heart and the lungs. Their skin is very elastic and their brain is much more complex than that of a human being. They have 3 fingers and 1 thumb. The Zetas have developed from the sexual reproduction process so that all sexual organs, as well as their digestive tract, have totally atrophied, wasted away. They have no stomach and digest their food by absorption through the skin or under the tongue. The mouth cavity is approximately 2 or 3 inches in depth. Their star fleet is called Urenda, which is named after the project they were assigned to and the name they give to the planet Earth. The name of their planet is Ernest. These are the entities that are involved in cattle mutilations. Since the mid-60s, organs have been cut out with precision. When the cuts were examined, they were said to have been done by a heat laser because the cuts or incisions have a rippling effect. They absorb specific substances like organs and bodily fluids which had been drained from the cattle that seemed to lend stability during the cloning process. These substances originate in certain glands and mucous membranes, lips, nose, genitals, and rectum. The problem that these entities have come to experience is that in the re-cloning process, each copy is genetically weaker than the last. This has stimulated their interest in the creation of a hybrid through genetic engineering with human genes, trying to merge and blend the species in order to preserve their race. It is for this reason that the Zetas abduct humans. Other species have similar reasons for abducting humans. Many of the abductions have an outwardly cruel nature to them, insofar as the nature of the examinations and genetic work is quite psychologically disturbing to humans. They are doing this in an attempt to reproduce on their own, without having to depend on their reptilian suppressors, who put them in the state they're in. They must depend on the reptilians for supplying their food and reproduction. They have successfully bred with humans and can breed amongst themselves. The Zeta who are cruel are better known as the Maldakians, who now inhabit the seas of the planet Earth under the Bermuda Triangle area. Many ships of sea and air are reported to have mysteriously disappeared, along with UFO sightings. Cities and laboratories exist in these areas that were made by these Maldakians. There is a conflict of control between a covert species, the Maldakian and Draconian linked cultures, and the Orion linked cultures. The so-called Orion group is an empire. Their purpose is conquest, then enslavement of the non-elite. These crusaders set up bases within Cydonia or Sidon, Mars, Tiamat, Earth, and Maldic Vulcan, which was bumped by Nibiru, and has since been destroyed. Don't think that these are the only kind of ebes there are. You have those that look like insects and rodents. There are insects and rodents on Earth now that are from other planets, such as roaches, grasshoppers, praying mantis and the scarab beetle, just to name a few, and don't forget about the dolphin. Insects and rodents are very irritating and dangerous to human beings because they carry a lot of germs and bacteria that can kill humans.